my name's Daisy and this is my final evaluation for my FMP project. My original aims for the project, I think, were mainly focused from the get-go on doing a visual poem. I really just like having different aspects of the music video whilst incorporating more like a deeper meaning and be able to do different effects, which I'll talk about later in my project. I do think that I've met the requirements of the brief. The brief really talks about the amount of research, context, and making sure everything is done in a specific time standard with lots of reflections. I do think I've completed this as I managed to finish the project on time, and I was quickly referencing my reviews a lot because a lot of the time I found that I was going back to my weekly schedule and making sure that I had completed everything successfully. I think that this just means overall that I managed to manage my time in quite a good way, because I found in some of the past projects that I was really either rushing towards the end or I was done quite quickly and then having to go back. So I feel like I completed this as closely to the time period as I could. For my research methods, I did quite a lot of secondary research as well as some primary research. For secondary research, I found that YouTube was really helpful because it meant that I could find more visual poems, because visual poems aren't something that you can necessarily just find a lot. So by going on YouTube, I could find some similar people in similar situations to me to get some inspiration. I found that I got quite a lot of inspiration from style-wise rather than my idea, because I feel like my idea was quite niche, because obviously I was talking about topics such as AI. So I mainly got most of my ideas from the aesthetics point of it rather than the real-world context point. Something that I really found out from my research, which was quite interesting, was the whole topic of AI, because I felt like I knew that I wanted to do AI and how it has some sort of negative impact on society when it comes to the arts. I really looked at quite a lot of articles, and there was one article I looked at in particular, and it was basically explaining how around 60 million jobs could be lost by 2030 due to AI overtaking them. And I think that's why I really wanted to choose this topic, is because a lot of people who are in careers in the arts and are creatives, just their sort of livelihood can just be taken away very easily from AI, which I just don't think is right. Something that I also wanted to touch on was I did research from the other point of view, so I wasn't biased. So I researched into how AI can be useful for certain things. I do agree that AI can be useful for things, but I don't think that it can necessarily replace things. I think having it for information is okay, but for recreation it can just be negative for many. I think my ideas have been quite informed by real world context, because a lot of the time when I was thinking about my video, I was really thinking about the people to try and represent, because I'm trying to represent the artist whose job could potentially be taken away by AI. So I think it was very important that I think about that a lot and really make mention to it. So the beginning of my video was obviously very AI based, very dull, boring. But when it actually came to the video that it transitioned into, it's very lifelike because it's being drawn by a real person. So that's how I decided to show that in a way, and I think that worked out quite well in the end. Because if I did it more explicitly, it wouldn't really go with the type of video that I was trying to make. There wasn't many necessarily sensitive issues that came up. It was more just I could tell that this subject doesn't really come up very much, so I think that's kind of what really made me want to tackle it and talk about it. Because whilst AI is so constantly it's being progressed so much, I just think that no one really talks too much about the negative sides of it and how it's going to overtake so many people's jobs. It's going to completely ruin the image of art in a way, because there's no sort of like creativity. It's a robot. It's not like a real human being creating something. So I think that's what I really wanted to talk about. But I think this sort of like links in with the career path I want to go down, because I'm talking about from the artist, but I feel like being someone who wants to go into a creative job in the future, I think it's for myself as well, because AI could be able to, do the same jobs as like directors or screenwriters. So it's kind of why I really want to talk about it as well, because it's not only affecting so many people, but it could affect me in the future. So I really wanted to make awareness around it. But yeah, and to know, because there's so many people that I know that sort of are talking about this, so I really wanted to make sure to understand that sort of audience. So I did a sort of questionnaire on Google Forms, which was made to kind of gather more primary research about the type of audience I wanted to sort of target. And I found out that the sort of like younger generation of people, a lot of them want to go into these creative sort of jobs in the future, and if they're going to be overtaken by AI, that really limits them to more corporate jobs. Technologies can overtake real like human expression. I think this also relates to like my practical skills, because I really wanted to base my practical skills on research that I did, and I found out that like a lot of the research I was doing had very similar sort of aesthetics to them. So I really wanted to learn something like mixed media wise, because the mixed media is obviously how I'm going to be showing the art portion of it through the visual poet. By me learning these sort of skills, it made it both linked to my real world context, and also I feel like it just visually and aesthetically also looks very good, which I think it's important to have a good dynamic of that. But the process I learned was essentially I wanted to do two kind of different things. So the first one was going to be, it would be like when the smoke was supposed to happen in the video from the cigarette, it would be a like crumpled piece of paper opening up and then transition into that scene. So what I did was take the scene that was going to be next, take a screenshot of it, print it out, and I wanted it in black and white, so I printed it out on black and white, and then I crumpled it, put it on a green screen sort of like floor so that it would be easy to key out in the Premiere Pro, and then I individually opened it, took photos each time, and then animated it in Premiere Pro by keying it out and then cropping it so that it would continuously sort of open up. So yeah, that's something that I definitely think I learned, and it took quite a lot of back and forth and watching a lot of YouTube videos, but I feel like in the end it ended up looking quite good. I also learned how to do double exposure, which wasn't as difficult, but there was two ways I did it. The first way was by changing the opacity on overlaying clips, and then there was also an effect on Premiere Pro called Echo, which I used for one of my scenes, which I feel like ended up looking pretty good in the end. In a lot of my other videos, I wasn't really too focused on the different camera movements, but for this one I really wanted to make everything sort of come together and come to life in a more like natural way. So I did get the help of my friend to help me with some of the moving shots that we did, which was mostly outside and the sun. And I think this really like helped my sort of outcomes feel less staged and more natural, which is really the sort of like look I was trying to go for. But I think like this did pose more of a challenge, as from the other videos I found it quite easy because it was me doing it, but because I had to get the help, I found it quite hard to sometimes communicate with her on how to do the like and get the sort of look that I wanted. So I did sort of improve my soft skills in a way, which I think was quite important, because it managed I could work better in like sort of a team sense. When it came to a cross-platform for my video, I really wanted to sort of turn it into something social media wise in a kind of trailer way. I don't want to do the whole video as a social media because I feel like it's not realistic for short form content to be watched for around 5 minutes. So I decided to make it around 1.5 minutes long and turn it into more of like a fast-paced sort of edit that people could gather what was happening, and be able to tell, but also draw them into watching the actual video. I think like this FMP kind of like allowed me to realise that whilst I do want to do something sort of like screenwriting, I also don't want to do something hands-on, as I feel like I find it harder to do something from someone else's point of view, and I would rather be the one creating the ideas, as I feel like I have so many ideas to make that I feel like it would be a sort of a waste to do something where I wouldn't be able to be as in control as I would want to be. Some skills that I've sort of developed to help me progress are definitely like my sort of, I feel like, time management skills and leadership skills. I'm more confident when it comes to instructing people on how to do things rather than be quite restricted when it comes to like having one specific idea and not wanting to take any sort of feedback for it. But yeah, I think overall I've really developed quite a lot of skills this project that I'm quite happy with, as it was more creative and I was able to sort of like take my ideas and like develop them a lot further than I would be able to in some of the previous projects. Over this like whole year, the previous ones I found quite good and I really enjoyed them, as it was like really a time for me to be able to learn how to do things, because before this I hadn't had any sort of like previous camera skills or any sort of like media teaching. So I found it really helpful to have the first 4 projects to like be able to learn, and have this one to really be able to take charge and do stuff more independently, which I quite enjoyed a lot. I do think I like applied my skills throughout these 4 projects all into this project, as I took aspects from all the different units 1 to 7 and put it into this unit 8, whilst also learning new skills, which I found to be quite useful for when I go into the next year and then hopefully go to university after that, as I'll have many different skills that I can sort of adapt in different ways. Thank you so much for listening to my evaluation. I've had such a good time with this FMP. Thank you.